I don't know how it's possible to both love philosophy so intently while simultaneously seeing it as such pretentious garbage. Maybe it mirrors how I see myself. Maybe this is my moment of introspective realization, or maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know. We, on all levels of society, households to the global economy, need social unity. I so often feel uneasy about delving into game theory or philosophy or analysis of social constructs because, to be honest, I don't think they hold much weight in the real world. I still like the subject immensely, and I need to practice writing and speaking, so let's dive into an analysis of unifying factors for society. My list initially started with nationalism. Nationalism isn't a unifying factor. Nationalism is the extreme end of societal unity on the level of a nation state, holding neither positive or negative connotations in itself, but often accompanied by xenophobia, unity of morals or beliefs, resistance to social change, and generally a national pride. In a 1998 paper written by Hjerm about reconstructing positive nationalism in the context of Norway and Sweden, Hjerm begins by defining a nation, and for my purposes, along with my biases, I am going to use the definition that he works off of, as said by Rogers Brubaker's book, Nationalism Reframed. Instead of looking at a nation as a stagnant unit, we will look at it as a framework of ideals or morals that is constantly changing and functioning more as a categorization of peoples than a tangible unit. This categorization is known, it's inclusive to peoples within the nation, and contains a governing body of at least minimal organization. Taking a step back, nationalism comes with exclusion. In Yom's definitions of old and new nationalism, old focused on state superiority with exclusion focused outward, and new nationalism excluding those seen as non-national or non-allied internally. Relating this to the US, as that is what is most applicable to me, we can see a shift from old to new nationalism in the turn from anti-communist Cold War rhetoric that defined the nationalism of mid-century America to the advent of entertainment news focused on uniting the Conservative Party against social and economic progress. This movement has been growing, giving unity and propagating the slide into extremism by giving validity to fears, offering targets to blame, and most of all, acceptance without the need to reflect, something that requires both a framework to start and motivation to continue. I have a paper, or more specifically a story from Hanzi Freinacht, a German philosopher among other things. In How Will and Should We Feel National Pride in the Future, Freinacht posits that there are 7 layers of identity, starting with the individual or the self, the group, which is any small gathering that offers inclusiveness, the incorporated group, best shown by businesses, the level held by most mid-millennia European states, with companies holding joint power with monarchs and state direction following monetary gain by said businesses. The platformer system, holding ideas such as political affiliation, religious identity, the economic market, etc. The modern state, number 5, that facilitates the freedom of the latter 4 identities to exist within their own framework under an umbrella of protection from both other contained identities and external threats. This also contains the national identity, propagating it through national education and upholding agreed upon standards with the powers of monopolistic violence, the police, military, FBI, CIA, so on and so forth. 6 and 7 are international communities, the Axis and Allies, the East and the West, NATO, EU. 6 holds international communities, such as the Axis and the Allies, the West and the East, NATO, the European Union, and 7 is the identity of existing within the sphere of humanity as a member of planet Earth. So, nationalism allows for coordination of the first 5 identities up to the nation level. However, it's impossible to police the sources of nationalism. When identities overlap, such as when businesses and monopolies have an abundance of power over the state, Prevailing nationalism and identity can be nudged towards support for the businesses and not the well-being of the nation. Similarly, when the party, level 4, gains too much power, it will prioritize itself, propagating new nationalism and interior exclusion, ethnocentric or otherwise, leaving a fractured state and lack of national identity from both the aggressors and defenders. In a state building a higher level government or breaking out of authoritarianism, this can be a good thing. It can break previous identities down and allow for creation of a new national identity around state superiority, giving rise and allowing the rise of a state. This facilitates the growth and prosperity by individuals that find alliance and unity in common goal. In a state building a higher level government or breaking out of authoritarianism, this is a good thing. It can break down previous identities and allow for creation of a new national identity around state superiority, allowing for growth and prosperity by individuals that can, for the first time, find alliance and unity in common goals. Similarly, the overtaking of a higher level 5 by groups, businesses, or parties will fracture the national identity, weakening unity and dissolving faith in the systems and governance. This happens because those systems are all groups of individuals as well, and we only find trust in them through said national identity, as it is the lowest level identity that includes both the self and the government whole. This obviously is massively simplified, as all pieces of identity are constantly shifting, interacting, and forming, but it does bring with it a basic level of understanding, allowing for structured thought around these theories. Let's move away from good old Hanzi, as he is and has already quantified the ideas that I am trying to form, and it's hard to break away from his conclusions. The social changes of the last 50 years have been a bloody fight to lift groups that historically have been persecuted, marginalized, underrepresented, and excluded from national identity. Regardless of your place in society and how close you are and have been to this fight, it has affected us all. Common vocabulary and grammar norms have changed, leaving people who are isolated in their groups to feel separated from the whole. Businesses have had to change how they hire in arbitrary ways to support groups and people that they feel no common identity with. And media, that has always been friendly to these legacy-in groups, now often says negative things about them. And for individuals who felt included their whole lives, and were told that they deserved to be included by their parents, and were told that they had companionship with society as a whole. Of course this is enraging. How could it not be? Their country is changing without them. Because this jumps out at me is that social changes marginalized groups have and are fighting for are less so individual rights, that is important, and more about fighting for representation in the national identity. To be a part of the whole without disclaimers and without an asterisk next to their identity as the outsider that is being included. And I say that from a place of having no way to relate to that. The statement I just made means nothing to me outside of my own preconceived notions. So take it as such. I am the stereotype. I accept that, and I feel thankful that I get to enjoy the benefits of never having to consider how I am seen. What it does mean is that it is easy to say fuck the pieces of shit that are turning towards hate and fear. And on an individual level, I see the people that are stuck in the past and have decided to rebel against progress. I want so badly to tell them to fucking get over it, to adapt. You aren't being prosecuted. No one cares what you do or if you use pronouns. Nobody wants to take anything from you. It's just less socially acceptable to shit on other people because of how they look. Who fucking who? Like, what the fuck? But it isn't about that. It isn't that simple to them, and it isn't that simple to the people fighting for change. No individual changes unless the groups they identify with change, internally or to a new group. Group unity is strong, and when the group identity does not change, but the expected national identity does, regardless of how much or in what aspect, there is a hole left, where these communities now feel isolated in a sea of unfamiliar and unallied people. Of course it is scary. And of course, when someone talks to them in a way that fits their previous identity, they will trust them. I guess almost universally and unconsciously. And this is what is happening across the world. There is unity in authoritarianism because it's not authoritarianism. It is acceptance of The desire to rebel against changes to the status quo. And it's a fight that has just as much passion as the fight to change the status quo. Changes towards a global society and international aid efforts decay nationalism without a sufficient replacement, allowing for new nationalism to take hold in the place of a previous national identity, or old nationalism. And you may ask why this is happening so concurrently and universally, and it's because the unknown is scary, and lack of unity is scary, and fear is both easy to monetize and easy to manipulate. Social change alienates isolated groups, and most of the world exists in these isolated groups. And if not pulled in a non-offensive and accommodating way towards inclusiveness, they'll turn the other direction and resist change, as humans so universally do without motivation. And unfortunately, intention for that action won't ever come without previously set structure or direction. Partially because that isn't how the world works. We are all individuals that look out for ourselves. I'm going to end here. Next time, we'll talk about religion and its role in unity and separation and how it works so well at both. Thanks for listening. You are strong. Your journey will end one day. And for most of you, that day won't be today. Look at the world logically. Treat the people around you with respect if they offer the same to you.